Welcome back everyone. Today we're making wooden eggs. I made one last year and I made one last week. But last week's was kind of interesting because I decided to experiment by laminating blue felt and wood together. Now I did make a lot of short videos about this, but I find that those shorts just get lost in the abyss of the internet after a while. So it makes sense for me to put it all together in one video here. So I'm going to keep it more chilled today. I hope you guys don't mind. I'll pipe in here and there, and then I'll let some of my clips play on for a little bit longer than normal. Let's try something new. We're going to be focusing on this blue felt egg today. I already have a full video on this wooden one here. I didn't have the magnetic base though, which I will talk about in this video. Alright, let's get going. Believe it or not, a lot of people thought this was a blueberry Pop-Tart. Yum. So that first part was pretty self-explanatory, and I was holding a log at the beginning of the video. That's because I actually collected this wood from the beach and ripped these pieces out by hand. You may have seen those videos a long time ago. Anyways, that's just me complicating things. I think this is spalted maple, but I will admit, kinda smells like alder, so I'm not really sure. Spalted something. Now obviously I'm going to glue these together, and I think I have some explaining to do. I am using wood glue for this project. You're probably thinking I should use epoxy, and I actually did buy epoxy, intending to use it, but I just wasn't sure if it was going to work. So I decided to go with wood glue so that I didn't waste my epoxy. And I knew that wood glue would work because I actually tried it a few weeks ago on this wooden whistle here. And it worked. It actually worked really well. I am using Type Bond 3, which is a very strong wood glue, and it is waterproof, so I wonder if that's why it worked. I'm not sure if it would work with a basic crafting glue or not. But in the end, I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to try, because a lot of people don't stock epoxy. I know I don't anyways. I do stock 5-minute epoxy, but that doesn't work for this. So in a pinch, if you wanted to try something and you just had wood glue, I'd say go for it. See what happens. It worked for me. Anyways, this is just me gluing everything together. I clamped it in my vise, and I kept it in my vise for about 3 days. But you might need up to about 5 days. Epoxy would cure a lot faster. The wood glue takes a lot longer because the felt gets so saturated, it just takes more time. So definitely plan ahead for that. And once it was dry, it was just a matter of prepping my stock so I could actually use it on my DIY lathe. Which, by the way, I guess I didn't mention yet, I don't actually have a lathe. I'm doing this with a drill. But we'll get to that. So I just squared this up on my bandsaw, took it to my drill press, drilled a hole directly in the center. And now, because there's some very DIY hacky stuff going on here, I'm going to use this template to cut off a lot of the bulk of this material, so I don't have to take down too much on my DIY drill lathe. These patterns are available for free on my Patreon at Savvy Builds. If you guys like my content and you want to contribute to a monthly subscription for a few bucks, cancel anytime, that'd be awesome. Goes a long ways to keeping the channel going and the ideas flowing. I feel like I have a lot of ideas, and they just keep coming. Anyways, thank you to all the current Patreon members. Really appreciate you guys. Some of you have been around since the beginning. Huge thank you to you. But hey, all the views here help too. Now this part's kind of interesting. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people love the fact that you don't have to go out and buy a lathe, so that's cool. I kind of like it too. Now we're going to be using 5-minute epoxy to glue a nail inside of here, and that will act as our axle to spin this thing on our drill. I used a much smaller nail last year, It did work, but I wasn't super confident in its strength, so I went with a much beefier one this year. And I filed a couple of notches in there just to make sure I had enough epoxy buildup in those areas so it didn't come loose. And because I'm using cheap dollar store 5-minute epoxy, I don't know what you guys are using, but it helps to let it dry overnight. I know it's kind of annoying having to wait for things to dry for this project, but if you plan ahead, it's actually not too bad. I also think there's a lot of potential for this. Imagine doing this for like a chisel handle or a knife handle or something. I think that would be kind of cool. Anyways, once that's dry, we're ready to turn this into an egg. I strapped my drill to my workbench with some rebar wire and some wood screws. That block of wood at the top also helped. This is a little bit different than what I did in the first video last year because I couldn't find my metal strapping. But yeah, seems to work pretty good. Now do this at your own risk. If you guys don't feel comfortable doing this, don't do it. I'm comfortable doing it and that's why I do it. One day, I will buy a lathe. Anyhow, if you got that nail right in the middle, it's going to spin real nicely without too much wobble. Now you don't need maximum RPMs here. I used a clamp on my switch and I would estimate I was about half of the maximum RPM of the drill. Whatever that is. Seemed to work okay. And this is where the angle grinder comes in. In my original video, I don't know if I put this on film or not, but I actually tried doing this by hand with sandpaper and it just took forever. I think it's possible if you wanted to sit there for like 3 hours, but the angle grinder, that is a key player here. I'm using a 60 grit flap disc and I was able to rough this egg out probably less than 10 minutes. And that's with a lot of like starting and stopping, filming, making sure I'm not taking too much off, blah, blah, blah. I could probably go a lot faster. Anyhow, once it's roughed in, I switch to hand sanding. I start with 150, go to 220, and then 340. Now, something I did not mention in any of my short form content, so that's one benefit of watching my long form content, I was having a problem with the felt getting a little bit fuzzy as I was sanding it. Alright guys, I'm noticing a very small issue that I think I want to fix now before it gets worse. Little fuzzies here coming from the felt. Now obviously, had I used epoxy, this probably wouldn't happen. So I think my fix is going to be to coat this with a polyacrylic varnish, just a water-based varnish. Let that seep in there, dry, harden those fibers, and then I will continue my sanding. I don't think I actually filmed the fix, unfortunately. I let that dry for about an hour, and then on the extra fuzzy bits, I put a few drops of super glue. That got everything nice and firm, and as you can see, no more fuzz. This probably wouldn't happen if I used epoxy instead of wood glue. I'm assuming. I'll eventually try it out with epoxy. And now for the linseed oil. Looking much nicer now. And I put some paste wax on here as well. This is the Minwax paste wax. It's a lot easier to put it on now and just spin it on my drill than trying to buff it out later. And I'm just realizing now, I didn't film myself cutting the nail, but in the first video that I posted last year, it's a full tutorial on this. You guys can go watch that. I use the same process. And don't go anywhere yet, we're gonna make a magnetic base to put this egg on display, which I think is pretty cool. It uses the nail that's already in the egg, and it's very fast to make. Just drill a hole in a little twig, put some magnets in there. I'm using 5 here because my magnets are very weak. I'll have to order some stronger ones, unfortunately. And because they were so weak, the surface of that twig is very, very thin. In fact, you can see light go right through it. I don't really like that, but it's what I had to do to make this one work. Anyways, I just glued those in there, put the same finish on the base, and it is just strong enough to hold this egg up. I think this is a great way to display these eggs. They're not rolling around everywhere. And I kind of like that they look somewhat precarious just balancing on this piece of wood. It It almost gives me the same feeling of having an egg roll around on the edge of your countertop. You never know when it's going to fall and break. I know, the irony. I guess that's it, guys. I had a lot of fun making this. I'll probably make another one next year. Hit that sub button. Follow along.